Good evening. It is evening where I am currently at. It's nice to see you guys here. Hello till dawn, Genesis Ramirez, Mango Juice. Good evening, good evening. So, today we're going to be talking about Saturn in the 11th house. I think that of all the house placements, this has been the one that people have been requesting the most. It makes me feel like a lot of you guys have Saturn in the 11th, but I'm sure that's not the case. In any case, let us get into this. Saturn in the 11th house. The 11th house is the house of influences, how one is influenced by the external, and how one then influences the external. It is also a house of curation and collection because we collect new items and new influences and new people and organize them. These influences can be people that we curate, but one can also curate experiences and knowledge. Whereas the 11th house usually signifies a wide variety of influences upon an individual, Saturn here suggests that the influences are of a much narrower variety, as you may be extremely picky regarding who it is you associate yourself with. Whereas ordinarily the 11th house based individual is friends with all sorts of people, rich or poor, foreign or local, common or unique, someone who has Saturn in the 11th is much more exclusive, assessing closely any potential association so that it may only collect the most excellent, most impressive individuals. Recall that Saturn also relates to a form of the goddess Alakshmi, the goddess with a gold winnowing basket that inspects closely every morsel before she decides to consume it. Likewise, Saturn here can suggest someone who is intensely selective of their associations and rather discriminatory in their selection. All right, so I talked here about goddess Alakshmi. Alakshmi of her various forms is also Niriti. Let's see here if we can pull up some images. Oh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm a little sleepy and it's a little late. These are not the images that I like. These are not like the paintings that most stir me. I don't even know if I have these images in my computer anymore. I know what to do. The Met Museum. I'm sure they have an image that we can use. No, this is Lakshmi. I want a Lakshmi. Or maybe we can check out Dhumavati, because Dhumavati is another expression of a Lakshmi according to some authors. All right, so check this out about Dhumavati. Okay, that's a small image. For those of you who have watched my Lakshmi video, then this is not going to be news to you. But for some other people, all right, so this goddess, she is known by various names, although many scholars say that they are the exact same goddess, but some people disagree. You can refer to her as Jayashta with a long A, Niriti, Dhumavati, or Alakshmi. And two specific planets are said to be related to a Lakshmi, and that is Saturn and Ketu. Notice something about a Lakshmi. Oh, why did this image get small again? Notice something about the goddess Lakshmi. Do you see this thing over here? That is a gold winnowing basket. It is to suggest that she is extremely picky about the things that she consumes, right? But for more of this, you can go watch my video, my live stream on a Lakshmi, this one over here. So yeah, that's the aspect of Saturn that I'm referring to. All right, let me check the chat and then let me continue. No, I'm not going to do Saturn retrograde because I don't have enough of an understanding of Saturn retrograde. Although there are many people that say, oh, it simply makes Saturn stronger. So, yeah. So no, I'm not going to do a video on Saturn retrograde. All right, let's continue. The 11th is, again, the house of influences, the ideas, aesthetics, politics, opinions of the environment around us. It is the main house of the culture, and it also relates to mainstream pop culture. An individual with Saturn in the 11th would be less inclined to keeping up with what is going on in the present day culture. They are likely to be more ignorant of who the current pop stars are, actors, or celebrities. They are likely to be out of step with fashion trends. They are likely also to be rather ignorant of politics. This placement can create individuals that others would consider awkward, odd, strange, nerdy, because it can seem as though they live under a rock, completely closed off to the current trends, to the currents and trends of the outside world. If badly placed, it can suggest an individual that other people may make fun of for dressing in a way that is not current or listening to music that is either from another time or another culture. Because of how little Saturn in the 11th is integrated in common everyday culture, one can come off as though one has not been socialized because of how awkward one may seemingly behave around other people. One would have possibly grown up without a television, without a smartphone, which again would have made having conversations about current trends, the news, and pop culture very difficult. Such a one could be fascinated by foreign films or classic films, foreign music or music from another time, be knowledgeable about food from strange places, again, given their disconnect from the present outside culture. Saturn in the 11 can even suggest an individual that is quote unquote pure and virginal, because this position can protect one from the moral corrupt aspects, from the morally corrupt aspects of one's culture, because Saturn again works as a barrier and also a filter for crude and perverted influences. Interestingly, Saturn in the 11th aspects the first house through its third aspect and also the 8th house through its 10th aspect, suggesting a reserved, demure, quote unquote, sexually pure individual who has not allowed his or herself to be sullied by the degradation of modern day culture. This position can really protect someone from becoming crude and corrupt, because even if one grew up in a lower socioeconomic class, they are less likely to have been influenced by low class behavior. Their language is less likely to be crude. They are more likely to be polite and refined and well behaved, and in many ways, they reject the vulgar manners of such backgrounds and somehow manage to be refined in spite of their backgrounds. All right then. The next planet I'll do, because people voted in the live stream, it's Mars. So I'm going to start with Mars in the first. Guys, any questions, any comments, please feel free. After all, I do this live streams because I want it to be interactive. I like to read everything you guys say in the chat, especially because our chats don't go very, very quickly. And so it's easier for me to just keep up with everything and every single little thing you guys say. So yeah. What is the next video that I'm gonna bring? It's most likely going to be Mula Nakshatra. Oh, okay, wow. Damp Poets. Very interesting name. Okay, that's very interesting. Mars in the 12th first, why? Because you have Mars in the 12th or Mars in the later house? Nah, I think I need to start with Mars in the first. I almost finished the document for Mars in the first anyway, so I'm just gonna do that first. So continuing, though such natives can be rejected by the common everyday person, the Saturn in the 11th individual is often perceived as very fascinating to outsiders and especially to people of a higher class because, again, Saturn rejects the crudeness of its environment and only allows itself to be influenced by that which is proper. That such a one is then selected from among their peers by a powerful person, in the same way that a diamond in the rough is selected from a pile of ordinary rocks. So one finds that Saturn in the 11th can suggest that one starts off in life very socially weak and powerless because they cannot relate to the people immediately around them. But over time, their nature earns the admiration of those who exist outside of their culture, class, or immediate environment. And so it blesses them with unique and extreme opportunities that are not granted to the more unrefined people around them. Such a one may even struggle to make friendships because they struggle to find common ground between themselves and other people, because their tastes and interests are too uncommon, too odd, too different. This may force them to isolate even more, and as a result, they become even weirder and stranger, developing ever more eccentric interests that further divide them from the collective. But as this is a position that grows with time, by closing themselves off from the basic and common interests of the ordinary person, the Saturn in the 11th slowly becomes more unique and original, and then eventually they can be in the position to greatly influence the world around them. So, they can go from being socially rejected for being too weird to eventually being perceived as so interesting, so sophisticated, that they are not the ones influencing everyone else. They are now the ones setting the trends and getting everyone else to imitate them. All right. Kim K, a good Mars in the first example. Yeah. She would. She would. I don't think I'm going to place her. But I don't think I'm going to place her in the thumbnail, though. No, no. How do you guys even retract messages? And why do you guys retract messages? It's very interesting behavior. I was just checking out these buttons up here. Very interesting buttons. Top fans. Claire Worshipper. You guys' names are so interesting. Where do I get my info? Well, from various places, and then I just study them and contemplate them. So for example, reading some of the books about it, reading Brihat Parashastra, Phaladipika, all those classic books. Also, I really enjoy Barbara Pijan, 11th Bhava, because, again, to get many of those basic foundational ideas of the houses and planets and things like that. And then through contemplation, meditation, observation, and writing, I elaborate more upon that. So yeah, but thank you for the compliment. Does this apply to a transiting Saturn in the 11th? In some ways it does, but when Saturn is transiting your 11th, it more so suggests that you're going to lose a lot of friends, you're going to be lonely, things like that. I don't hate Kim K. I think she's very interesting. I just don't think I'm going to put her on the thumbnail, but I may change my mind. All right then, continuing. Again, it is a position that can also facilitate uniqueness, because the individual is not polluted by that which is common or ordinary. Being closed off to the going-ons of present-day culture can allow them to develop ideas, perspectives, and opinions that do not come by way of being influenced by the outside world. Others consider them to be strange and consider themselves to be normal, but the Saturn in the 11th individual can clearly observe that most people do not have their own well-thought-out understanding of different subjects. Instead, other people just submit to the current opinion of the day. Consider that it is common for people to mindlessly parrot ideas and opinions that actually do not belong to them, but Saturn in the 11th is immune to this. On the more negative side, this being a house of easy resources and gains, it can suggest that the individual does not have it easy in life. The 11th house is that of easy opportunities for success, where someone who is mediocre in ability can easily can easily associate themselves to a powerful person and in turn find employment despite not being very competent. This, unfortunately, is less likely to happen for the Saturn in the 11th individual. One is less likely to be so well connected as to get away with being slightly incompetent, but getting a prestigious position anyway. But on the bright side, Saturn here suggests that when you do finally refine yourself and your skills and become excellent, unique opportunities are given to you. Saturn is transitioning your first, but I would not expect. See, here's the thing. You're much more likely to identify with whatever dasha you're under right now, whatever dasha planet you're under right now, than it transits, right? Because when you go through dasha activations, that is you. That is your own karma fructifying. You know what I mean? Transits are more like external energies that you can benefit from, that can influence you, but not necessarily. But your own inherent karmas in the planets, that is much more likely going to affect you. In fact, that affects you so much that what do astrologers say? They say, place whatever dasha you're going through, whatever dasha planet, on the ascendants, and then read the chart from there. Because essentially you become that planet. Let's say you have Mercury in Kritika and you're going through the Mercury in Kritika dasha, you become Mercury in Kritika. Do you understand what I mean? So yeah. She does also have Saturn in the 11th. She has Jupiter and Saturn in the 11th, yes. She does have a lot of longevity. That is true. Yeah. All right then. Where are we now? Saturn is a planet of shadows and relates to the hidden powers that control our world and society. Whereas the sun rules visible power, Saturn rules invisible power. Saturn here would make it difficult to relate to the everyday common person for this reason. They would likely not be popular and would in many ways be considered a quote-unquote loser. But Saturn would provoke a curiosity as to what or who is controlling society by way of these trends everybody is so fixated with. Saturn here would provoke a curiosity as to who it is that is choosing which celebrities are pushed to the fore. A curiosity relating to the possible subliminal messages that are pushed in advertising. Because of this, the individual with Saturn in the 11th would slowly wish to make associations with very powerful but very hidden figures, and this becomes their network circle. Then their network circle becomes like secret individuals that control things. They become the acquaintance of the reptilian forces that control society from behind the scenes. They may have never met the president personally, for example, but they know the people behind the curtains that control the president, for example. Actually, let me add something else here. Because Saturn rules hidden forces, Saturn also rules the underworld. Saturn also rules the underworld. Oh, damn. Underworld and underbelly of society. And so when Saturn is a little badly placed here, in fact, it doesn't even have to be too badly placed, it can suggest that one associates themselves with or is given many opportunities by criminals. Let me go to the thesaurus. Criminal thesaurus. Criminals, lawbreakers, wrongdoers. Criminals, lawbreakers, drug traffickers, even organ traffickers. You know, and otherwise rebellious, hidden individuals and networks. Yes, and so something else that Saturn D11 can signify is that other people don't know this about you, but one of the ways that you gain your power is through these very, very dark aspects of society. What else? Prostitutes. What else could we add? Those sort of environments. I think we're all getting the idea of the sort of environments that I'm talking about. Yes, Saturn in the 11 can definitely suggest that. All right. Okay. The 11th house does not just relate to actual human network circles, but also a network of ideas and knowledge. And so Saturn here, even if one does not have access to actual powerful individuals, one would still read many books, listen to many podcasts, and generally be deeply and broadly informed about all of the hidden forces of our society and world. Saturn here can also produce an interest in the occult world, because magic and spirituality is yet another one of those hidden forces that are controlling everything around us without people realizing it. Saturn in the 11 can produce an interest in astrology, because astrology is of course a secret occult tool that is used to study society, culture, and the globe, as well as all the individuals within it. Saturn in the 11 would produce an interest in the tarot as well, because the symbolism of the tarot is useful for understanding the hidden messages and meaning and communications that are used to control and influence people in the world. So yeah. Hi Ezra. I think this is the first or second time I'm seeing you in a live stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. They Live, 1988. Never heard of this movie. 1988. Okay, sci-fi horror. After discovering a pair of sunglasses, truly is. Hidden has subdued the population with subliminal messages. I think I've heard of this movie. Very interesting. Very interesting. You say the director, John Carpenter? Let's check him out as well. I'm presuming this is the protagonist. John Carpenter. Okay. John Carpenter. AA verified. Okay, great. Okay, so this man is an Ashwini. Interesting. And a Chitra. Okay, and then the director is... He has Saturn in the 11, like you were saying. He has Uttara Phalguni, Uttarashara, but he also has an Uttara Bhadrapada moon. And of course, some of these things, many of these things that we're talking about right now, like the hidden forces that control society, it's very much Uttara Bhadrapada. Of course, the deity of Uttara Bhadrapada is the deity that controls the universe, the deity that controls the world. It is the deity that wears the earth as its crown, basically. Like, it secretly is the one hoisting up the earth. I'm not even sure if you can even find images of that. Earth on top of snake hood or something. I don't know. So yes, this image right here, this is very much representative of the deity of Uttara Bhadrapada. Right? So this is the deity of Uttara Bhadrapada. The deity that is secretly holding up the earth, and nobody realizes that it's this dark force that is controlling the earth. And so Uttara Bhadrapada really epitomizes that. And that is the aspect of Saturn that we are currently discussing. Because it's very interesting that the nakshatras represent a very raw aspect of the planets, whereas the signs represent a more mature aspect of the planets, I would say. Saturn and the movie The Matrix. The Matrix, yes, definitely the idea of the Matrix is very much that. The idea of the Matrix is very much that. But let us check out the charts of these individuals right here. The directors. I remember their charts from a long time ago. I forgot. Swati Jayashta, most likely Purva Shada, because we know the Astro theme, they don't use Lahiri, so you have to go like in front 1 degree. So this is most likely Purva Ashada. This is A, verified. Okay. Now Lana Wachowski as well. Okay, either Purva Bada Moon conjunct Saturn, very interesting, or Uttara Bada. But I get a feeling she's probably a Purva Bada. I just get that feeling. All right. Very interesting. Saturn conjunct K2 in the third. Ooh, I'm not even thinking about doing 2 planets through the houses. Not yet, at least. With eagles, I think that's first and foremost, eagles is very Scorpio, and you could probably associate with Jayasha as well. My Mars in the first is going to be for both men and women. I'm not really going to differentiate it. All right, going on, moving forward. Where were we? Okay, so Saturn is specifically the planet of science. It is the least abstract, least imaginative, least argumentative planet. Instead, it is interested in one thing, to study objects objectively. So Saturn is not like Moon or Rahu, right? Because Moon and Rahu are intuitive and imaginative. You know, they really run away with their intuition. They run away with their intellect. They make a lot of assumptions about people. Saturn does not like to do that. Saturn does not like to do the Rahu thing of making assumptions about people or predicting people's behavior. Saturn does not like to judge books by its cover. It likes to see things like, it likes to give people space to really show themselves and really show who they are. Saturn is also not a very abstract planet, or rather, it's the least abstract planet. It's not like Jupiter. Jupiter is very abstract and theoretical. Saturn is also not argumentative like Mars and Mercury, right? So Saturn, see, here's the thing about science. Science exists in many ways to humble the intellect and to humble your intelligence. Why? Because the most common thing for a highly intelligent person that is very attached to their own intelligence, very attached to their own opinions, thinks very highly of themselves, is a little bit prideful, a little bit arrogant. The common thing for such a person is to assume that they know things without even needing to test them. Assume that they know things without even needing to observe them in real life. Saturn is more specifically the planet of science because it humbles the intellect. It's a way of telling the human intelligence, no, stop making assumptions, stop coming up with opinions without proof. Let's actually test this out. Let's actually see these things play out in real life. So Saturn does not like to make assumptions. And intuition, imagination, abstraction, theory, arguments, in some way, shape, or form, all of these things have something to do with making assumptions, right? Saturn is science. It is keeping your opinions. It is not producing opinions, not allowing your intuition to get out of hand. It is simply observing things as they are. All right, then, let's continue. So Saturn wishes to understand matters tangibly and through experience. So in the house of culture and society, it can also produce an interest in anthropology and social psychology, and any other discipline that is related to objectively studying how individual members of a collective operate within that collective. Naturally, Saturn is the ultimate planet of control and subjugation, and gaining knowledge about how people behave is yet another means of controlling and enslaving them. Saturn is a planet of control, submission, and slavery. And so, where it is placed, it is either those significations are oppressing the individual, or the individual is the one exercising control and power over those significations. So, Saturn in the 11th can suggest that one is controlled by hidden forces that are very difficult to destroy. These forces may be blackmailing you. These forces may be a secret board of directors that are nameless and faceless, but to whom you must answer. Essentially, having Saturn here can mean that there is a hidden force that is exercising influence over you. Or it can suggest that the individual, his or herself, is interested in all of the secret tools that are used to subjugate the masses. Again, subliminal. Oh, so sorry. I'm going to skip this word. Subliminal messaging, celebrity puppets used to guide a culture, psychology, the psychology behind advertising, espionage, astrology as yet another tool to learn about and control people and society. So I think I was stuttering too much. You guys probably didn't understand what I was saying. Over here in this last part, I'm saying that one of the ways that somebody who has Saturn in the 11th may try to control society and other people is through subliminal messaging, using celebrities as puppets, being fascinated by anthropology, by social psychology, by the psychology behind advertising, espionage to collect information to control and subjugate those people, and also, of course, astrology, because astrology, yes, is a science. Astrology is an art and science that is very 11th house coded, essentially. All right, then. So, indeed, Saturn in the 11th can create a spy or someone who is fascinated by the idea of working in an espionage agency. This position can create a journalist, a gossip columnist, because secret information is one of the many tools that are used to exercise secret control over people and society. Right. Awesome. This is an interesting thought, but when it comes to Jayesh and Aslesha, those two tend to get along. They tend to understand each other very well. They tend to get along. Am I planning on working on the D9? Maybe, but if I do, that is going to take a very long time. Oprah has Saturn in the 11th. Does she? Oh, very interesting. Very interesting that Oprah Winfrey has Saturn in the 11th. Yes, Saturn in the 11th can also make a person, yes, in general, study culture. Definitely. If Saturn is debilitated without a savior, it can bring out the more negative expressions of displacement. Oh, you're graduating as a journalist. Oh, congratulations. Congratulations. Okay, we are coming to an end of this document. This was a very, very fast live stream, 37 minutes. Saturn in the 11 can also suggest that you feel the pressure to submit to society. You feel the pressure to submit to every single one of its rules and norms and conventions, no matter how silly or ridiculous, because society is oppressing you. Society is enslaving you. This position can also make one into a hypocrite in the sense that, in the outside, one will try to pretend to be submissive to society, following its norms and rituals. But behind the scenes, one is contradicting every single convention and doing things other members of society would consider wrong. This can create a man who is civilized externally, but perverted and corrupt behind the scenes. So let me try to elaborate a little bit more on this. So where you have Saturn, those forces are either oppressing you or you're the one controlling and oppressing those forces, right? The 11th house is the house of general popular culture, your external environment, and things like that. And so if you have Saturn there, it can suggest that your immediate environment, your outside culture, is really pressuring you to conform. So what can happen? There are three ways that this can reflect itself. Whenever outside culture, whenever somebody is forcing you to conform, whenever somebody is trying to control you, there are basically, in general, three ways you behave. A, you either allow yourself to be controlled by that force, and so you submit to every rule and everything else. B, you become a hypocrite. You pretend like you're submitting to them, but behind the scenes you do whatever you want. And then C, lastly, you rebel. You completely go against them. You openly confront them, right? Those are the three ways that you basically behave whenever somebody's trying to control you. Where was I? Here we are. And finally, it can also create a rebel, someone who refuses to be influenced and directed by the culture and does whatever he or she pleases. All right then. Okay. I already do this, and I've been doing this for a long while. Let me open up. Let me use incognito. Hidden Octave, Patreon. I've done statistical studies on fashion designers. I've done statistical studies on football players, but I'm not sure how many people are interested in that. I've done statistical studies on various things. Of course, I also did a statistical study on beauty, but that was not nakshatra based. You're asking specifically for like nakshatra based things. I've done statistical studies on homosexual men specifically. The part 1 version is specifically homosexual porn stars because I was trying to, and then the part 2 is going to be like drag queens, and then part 3 is going to be like celebrities, and I'm going to contain all of those at the same time. The reason why I separated them is because, I mean, obviously if I'm studying the chart of porn stars, to what extent do I know that I'm collecting data on actual homosexuality, and to what extent do I know that I'm collecting data on specifically pornography, right? So yeah, I've done statistical studies on various things. And no, but I won't reveal that right now. But in any case, yeah. But listen, please, now that we're on my Patreon, shameless plug, please join my Patreon if you guys enjoy my content. Yeah, I've got over 190 posts, still going strong. I am finishing my article on Ketu in Ashwini, and then I think I only have Mars in Ashwini that's left. And then there's still the second video on Ashwini that I have to do as well. So yeah. All right. More people doing journalism and politics. Does Jeffrey Epstein have Saturn in Jeffrey Epstein birth chart? What is happening here? Okay. AstroSeek. AA verified. Jeffrey Epstein also has Saturn in the 11s. Very interesting. Very interesting. And in many ways, he also represents the things that we were saying. Oh, and what really adds to all those significations is the fact that he also has Moon in Uttara Bhadrapada, really emphasizing many of those darker Saturnian qualities. And he also has Ketu in the 8th house and in Aslesha. And so these are all positions that are related to the underworld and controlling the underworld, right? Very interesting. Very interesting. Oh, Donald Trump too also has Saturn in the 11. All right. I'm doing Mars after Saturn. It does manifest a lot like an Aquarius. What are your thoughts on working? I'm not sure if I understand this question. Elaborating more on the beauty ritual. Uh, Much of that information is mostly for the people who are already doing the thing, because we cannot have like too many people's energies like influencing the astral environment that we're trying to create. But let me see a few things that I can tell you. Listen, I don't know what it is that I can share. The thing about a ritual is that you can't elaborate too much upon it for the people who are not directly involved in the thing, because you basically do not want their energy infiltrating and messing up and interfering with the thing that you're trying to create. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. But basically, it's a beauty ritual. Okay. Pretty much that. If it's exalted in the D9, then the debility is reversed. So it's not exactly debilitated anymore. It can delay. It can suggest a delay in making friend groups. Yes. Nah, this is not something that I'm ever gonna do. I may make Patreon articles about it, but I'm not really gonna do videos about that. Alright, guys, we're at the end of our stream. I mean, if there are no more questions or anything like that, we can perhaps call it a night. But if you guys do have questions, we can chill for another 10 minutes or something. "14 concurrent views, 70 views." Oh, YouTube is not responding. Come back. And we're back. What does this even mean? Alright then, guys, I think in this case I'll just call it a night, and I'll thank you guys for being here with me. God bless you all. I really enjoy your company. As in my next nakshatra videos, yeah, this year I think I'm mostly gonna be focusing, in terms of like longer nakshatra videos, I'm gonna be focusing on K2 a lot. Makes a person infamous. It can make a person infamous because it can make a person weird. It can make a person a bit of a rebel because they go against the collective. It can make a person like odd because you're not influenced by the same common thing everybody else is influenced. It can mean that you're associated with very negative characters. Yeah, I can see that. It can restrict your access to the internet. Don't you remember? I think I said that in an earlier paragraph that it can suggest somebody who grew up without a television, without a smartphone, because the internet is one of the many ways, or the main way nowadays, that we connect ourselves to popular culture. When you say famous people nakshatras, what do you mean by that? Do you mean like do a dedicated video to a particular famous person? Don't know about that. Oh, like what makes a person famous? It's not something that I was ever thinking about doing. Marilyn Monroe has Saturn in her fourth house. She is a Cancer ascendant and she has Saturn in Libra, so that's her fourth house. Whew. Anyway, you guys, thank you guys so much for being here.